Let me ask you something that might sting a little. Are you exhausted from trying to be seen? Are you tired of explaining yourself to people who still don't get it? Do you feel like you're spinning your wheels, shouting into the void, waiting for permission to live your damn life? Then listen closely, because I'm about to tell you something that will flip your entire mindset. You don't need more attention. You need more focus. You don't need to speak louder. You need to move quieter. And if you can lock in with me for the next few minutes, I promise, by the end of this, you won't just feel inspired, you'll feel unstoppable. We live in a world that is louder, faster, and more cluttered than ever before. And that's not by accident, it's by design. Everything is built to hijack your attention, your phone, designed to make you addicted, social media, engineered to keep you scrolling. The constant noise from people's opinions, comments, updates. It all starts to drown out your own voice. And when that happens, your focus goes out the window. Because the truth is, you can't grow into who you're meant to be if you're constantly distracted by who you're not supposed to be. And you will never build something meaningful when all your energy is leaking into conversations, arguments, and validations that don't matter. The enemy isn't your competition. It's not your ex. It's not that job you didn't get. It's not even your lack of resources. The real enemy is distraction. Every time you check what someone else is doing, you're abandoning your own life. Every time you're obsessing over who said what or whether people are supporting you, you're giving away your power. Distraction doesn't always look like chaos. Sometimes it looks like a conversation that goes nowhere. Sometimes it looks like doing 10 small, meaningless tasks just to avoid the one thing that actually moves the needle. Sometimes it looks like chasing approval instead of chasing purpose. You need to understand something right now. Your attention is currency. Where you put it determines your entire life. And if you're spending it on things that drain you, confuse you, or slow you down, then don't be surprised when your progress stalls. You're building a masterpiece, and you're letting background noise blur the vision. That has to stop. You don't owe your time, your energy, or your peace to every voice around you. In fact, the moment you realize how little of it is actually helping you, the more powerful you become. There's a reason why the most successful people seem so laser-focused. It's because they've mastered the art of tuning out the noise. They don't let a negative comment throw them off. They don't give their time to gossip, drama, or excuses. They've learned that every yes to distraction is a no to their dream. And if you want to do something extraordinary with your life, and I know you do, then that same discipline has to become your new default. That means unfollowing what doesn't fuel you. That means turning off your notifications and turning up your intention. That means sitting in silence and actually asking yourself, what do I need to do today to get closer to the life I want? Look, I'm not here to guilt you. I've been there too, wasting hours reacting to everything, getting caught up in everyone else's drama while my own goals collected dust in the corner. But the shift happens the moment you get sick of your own distractions. That's when you start to protect your focus like your life depends on it, because it does. Your focus is your foundation. It's the only thing that separates someone who talks about change from someone who actually creates it. And once you cut the noise, the clarity is incredible. You start to hear your own thoughts again. You start to trust your gut. You stop chasing shortcuts and start building discipline. Suddenly, the next step becomes obvious. Not because life got easier, but because you stopped letting life pull you in 1,000 directions. Everything gets sharper, your habits improve, your boundaries strengthen, your vision clears, and that's when the magic begins. Not with more hustle, not with more validation, but with more focus, and the courage to protect it like everything depends on it, because it does. We've been conditioned to believe that silence means weakness. That if you don't respond, if you don't speak up in every moment, if you don't clap back or defend yourself, you're somehow losing. But that belief, it's costing you peace, power, and progress, because silence, real, intentional silence, is not weakness. It's restraint, it's control, it's the power move most people are too reactive to make. You don't need to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't need to prove your worth through constant explanations. And you sure as hell don't need to give energy to things that are beneath the level you're trying to reach. Silence doesn't mean you don't care. It means you're smart enough to know where your energy belongs. You don't always need to be the loudest person in the room. You just need to be the one who knows exactly what they're doing. And that kind of certainty doesn't come from constant talking. It comes from sitting with yourself. It comes from knowing when to hold your tongue and let your actions speak. The most powerful people you'll ever meet aren't running their mouths. They're focused, they're grounded, and they don't let noise distract them from their mission. Most people are addicted to reaction. They hear something they don't like, they jump, they see someone winning, they compare, they get criticized, and they spiral. But when you grow, really grow, you stop reacting and you start observing. You watch, you wait. You understand that not every moment requires your voice, because when you're focused on building something real, you don't have time to constantly respond to nonsense. The truth is, silence protects you. It gives you space to think. It gives you room to breathe. It puts the attention back on what really matters. Your energy, your growth, your direction. People may not understand it. They may think you've fallen off, that you're distant, that you're quiet for the wrong reasons. Let them think it. Because while they're talking, you're working. While they're posting, you're planning. While they're focused on attention, you're focused on execution. Silence is where confidence is built. Silence is where healing happens. Silence is where you recalibrate your life without needing anyone else's permission. It's not about hiding, it's about rising, without making a sound. Because when the results come, they won't just see you, they'll feel you, and you won't need to explain a thing. Confidence doesn't come from people clapping for you. It doesn't come from compliments, followers, likes, or approval. That kind of confidence is fake. It fades the second the attention goes somewhere else. Real confidence, it's built in private. It's built in the quiet moments where you show up for yourself over and over again, even when no one's watching, even when no one cares. The minute you start focusing on yourself, really focusing on your habits, your mindset, your growth, something shifts. You stop needing people to tell you who you are because you start knowing it for yourself. And that kind of inner knowing, that's unshakable. It doesn't depend on the external world because it's rooted in something much deeper, self-respect. The more time you spend checking in with yourself instead of checking up on others, the more powerful you become. You stop trying to copy people. You stop seeking validation. You stop wondering if you're doing enough because deep down, you know you are. You've seen what you're capable of in the dark. You've felt your own strength when things got hard, and you kept going anyway. That's where confidence lives. Not in your achievements, but in your consistency. And that consistency, it only comes from locking in on your own lane. Not chasing people, not explaining yourself, not getting caught in the trap of comparison. When you're focused on yourself, you're not worried about what they're doing, what they're saying, or how they're judging you, because none of that matters when you're dialed in on your own mission. You're too busy improving. You're too busy healing. You're too busy becoming someone you actually like. And that internal shift, it changes everything. Your posture changes. Your energy shifts. You stop trying to fit in and start creating space where you belong naturally. You no longer shrink to make others comfortable. You no longer beg for love, opportunities, or recognition. You command it by simply being aligned with who you are and what you stand for. Most people think they need to become more confident before they start focusing on themselves. But it's actually the opposite. You build confidence by doing the work no one sees. You build it by choosing discipline when comfort is easier. You build it by showing up when it would be simpler to quit. That's how it grows, one quiet decision at a time, stacked day after day. Confidence isn't loud, it's silent, steady, and undeniable once it's real. One of the biggest reasons people stay stuck is because they're waiting for permission to grow, permission to pivot, permission to want something different than what they were taught. But here's the truth. No one is going to fully understand your journey, and they don't need to. Stop wasting energy trying to explain yourself to people who aren't even living the kind of life you want. Not everyone is meant to get it. Not everyone is meant to support you. And that's not a problem. It's a sign you're doing something bold, something personal, something that doesn't fit inside the neat little box someone else built for you. Every time you try to make your dream digestible for someone else, you dilute it, you shrink it, you reshape it into something safer, smaller, more acceptable. But you weren't born to be understood. You were born to be real. You were born to evolve, to take up space, to break patterns, and that kind of growth, it confuses people. It makes them uncomfortable, especially the ones who are too afraid to make changes in their own life. When you start rising, it reflects everything they're not doing, so don't expect them to cheer, don't expect them to clap, expect resistance, expect silence, expect misunderstanding, and then keep going anyway. Because your journey is yours. The late nights, the early mornings, the tears you don't talk about, the wins no one sees. None of it needs validation to matter. And the more you try to explain yourself, the more distracted you become. You start justifying decisions that were never theirs to approve in the first place. You start questioning your path not because it's wrong, but because someone else couldn't see what you saw. Let them be confused, let them talk, let them walk away. That's not your burden to carry. Your only job is to stay aligned with your vision and your truth. The right people will feel it. The right opportunities will find you. The clarity will come, but only when you stop asking for everyone to come with you. Sometimes growth looks like distance. Sometimes it looks like doing things alone. Sometimes it looks like silence when you're surrounded by noise. But none of that means you're lost. It means you're finally choosing yourself. You don't need to be liked. You need to be respected. And respect starts with you respecting your own journey, whether anyone gets it or not. You can say all the right things. You can dress the part, post the right quotes, and speak with confidence. But if your energy doesn't match your words, people feel it. That's the part you can't fake. Energy is raw, it's real. It enters a room before you do and lingers long after you leave. And the crazy thing is, most people don't even realize they're leaking their power through the energy they carry. If you're desperate, it shows. If you're insecure, it hums underneath everything you say. If you're angry, it spills out no matter how hard you try to smile through it. But when you're calm, grounded, focused, that kind of energy shifts everything around you without you needing to speak at all. You don't need to chase attention when your energy commands presence. You don't need to explain your worth when your energy reflects it. And you don't need to argue with people about who you are when your energy speaks for itself. That's why focusing on yourself in silence is so powerful. Because when you're doing the inner work, when you're building discipline, healing your patterns, honoring your boundaries, that growth creates a frequency that can't be ignored. People might not understand what's different about you, but they'll feel it. They'll notice the way you carry yourself, the peace in your eyes, the way you no longer entertain chaos, drama, or meaningless conversations. That's what real power looks like, when you've done enough work that you no longer need to prove a thing. Think about the people who inspire you the most. It's not what they say, it's how they show up. You respect them because they're authentic. They don't try too hard, they're not performing. They just move with intention. They radiate clarity. And that kind of energy only comes when you've been through the fire and come out stronger. It comes from silence, from self-awareness, from choosing growth instead of validation. Energy never lies. That's why it's more important to align your life than it is to advertise it. You don't need to announce every move. You don't need to explain your process. You just need to do the work, quietly, consistently, and let your energy do the talking. Because when your energy is right, you don't have to force things. The right people, the right situations, and the right outcomes are drawn to you, not because of what you say, but because of who you've become. Most people are holding on so tight they don't even realize they're the ones blocking their own blessings. Trying to control how things happen when they happen, who shows up, who leaves, what the timeline looks like, it's exhausting, and it's not working. You know why? Because control is fear in disguise. It's fear of failure, fear of uncertainty, fear that if you stop micromanaging everything, your life will fall apart. But here's the truth most people avoid. The tighter you hold on, the more resistance you create. And the more resistance you create, the harder it becomes to move forward. Sometimes the only thing standing between you and your breakthrough is your obsession with how it should go. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means loosening your grip on outcomes so you can actually live. It means trusting yourself enough to know that whatever happens, you'll handle it, that your worth isn't tied to control, that your peace isn't something you bargain with. You cannot create space for new things if you're clinging to what's already gone. You can't attract the right people if you're still chasing the wrong ones. And you can't move forward if your head is stuck in trying to rewrite the past. When you finally decide to let go, even just a little, you create room for something bigger than your plan. You create room for alignment, for flow, for opportunities you couldn't have predicted if you tried. Because life doesn't respond to force. It responds to clarity. When you stop controlling everything, you start seeing clearly. You start trusting your gut. You stop overthinking every move and start taking action. And suddenly, you're not chasing anything, you're becoming someone, you're creating momentum, not because you have it all figured out, but because you're finally letting life work with you instead of against you. It's scary, I know. Letting go feels vulnerable. It feels like surrender, but what you're really doing is making space for your strength to show up. You're saying, I don't know exactly how this will play out, but I'm done pretending I have to control it all. And that shift, that quiet internal release is what opens the door. That's when people start showing up. That's when solutions appear. That's when you feel lighter, sharper, more in tune, not because the world changed, but because you did. You stopped gripping. You started trusting. And that's when everything around you finally starts to fall into place. Look, this journey isn't for the faint of heart. Focusing on yourself in a world that constantly pulls at your attention is hard. Choosing silence when your ego wants to scream is uncomfortable. Letting go of control when your brain craves certainty feels terrifying. But that's exactly why it works. Because the moment you decide to shift inward, to stop chasing people, to stop needing validation, to stop explaining yourself to those who were never meant to understand, you step into a version of yourself that's grounded, unshakable, and powerful beyond words. Everything starts to fall into place, not because life suddenly gets easier, but because you stop getting in your own way. You stop forcing, reacting, pleasing, performing. You become the kind of person who leads without noise, who inspires without trying, who attracts peace, opportunities, and growth just by being aligned. So if you're tired of feeling stuck, if you're sick of the noise, the chaos, the comparison, go quiet. Go inward, build in silence, heal in private, focus on becoming, and then watch what happens. Watch how fast things shift. Watch how the right people start to appear. Watch how your path begins to clear. Because when you finally focus on yourself and stay silent long enough to hear your own truth, Everything aligns. Now go. You don't need applause. You need action, and this, right here, is your starting line.